Thank you and welcome to Spotlight on Excellence, the show dedicated to providing entrepreneurs the essential business tools required to reach the ultimate level of success. I'm your host, Michael McDonough. As an entrepreneur myself, I've faced the same challenges that you face, and I found that one of the best ways to achieve success is to model success. So we created Spotlight on Excellence to deliver experts in key business segments directly to you so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, you just have to make it your own. Today we're focused on marketing yourself through networking. With our special guest, Super Connector, and a Managing Director for eWomen Network, Sherill Calhoun. Welcome to the show, Sherill.
Thank you, Michael, for having me.
You came all the way from Fresno just to be with us today.
I did, and I'm excited to be here.
Well, I've heard a lot of great things about you through friends we have in common, including our executive producer, Joey Garrity, who has a lot of great things to say about you.
Thank you.
And I know that we're looking forward to hearing how you built such a strong network down in Fresno and I guess throughout maybe the whole United States, so that we can learn how to build a network that'll help us grow our businesses.
Great.
But I understand you started in banking. Tell us, for our viewers, how you went from banking into being a master networker.
Well, you know, actually, being in banking helped me become a networker. I started my banking career in the Bay Area when I was going to college and transferred back to the Valley and ended up working a career of 30 years in banking. And throughout those years, I connected with hundreds and hundreds of people.
Well, that's important in the banking. I was in investment banking, which is a little different, but as a financial advisor, it's important for us to have those kind of networks. But we'll get to business in just a minute because I want the viewers to get to know you a little bit better. So what I always ask is, what do you have on your iTunes playlist? Now, you told me you don't have an iTunes playlist, but you do enjoy music.
You know, I love music of all kinds, but I am really a country music gal. That's my thing. I love to listen to country music, and I have some favorites, and it's predominantly what I have listed that I've downloaded, although I like the music from the 70s and 80s as well. It just brings back a lot of good memories.
Okay, give me a specific example. What's your favorite country tune?
You know what? I don't think I have a favorite country tune. I just have a lot of favorites. George Strait happens to be one of my favorites.
Okay.
He's just such a talent, and every song of his just has a great story.
In fact, I came from Nashville, Tennessee,
Did
the
you?
home of country music. That's right.
It sure is.
Well, let's get down to business. Why has networking become such an essential tool for prospecting in today's business environment?
You know, when I first started in banking, prospecting, and probably most every organization I worked for, prospecting was about finding a list of leads, many of them people that you never knew, names, some were qualified leads that you paid even money for, some were unqualified, cold calls, warm calls. And what I learned through going through that process is that, you know, the best way to develop a network is through developing a relationship with the person. And that happens one person at a time. And, you know, that might sound daunting for people who are just very eager to get out there and start building a wide network, a strong network, but it takes time and it takes the right type of energy. And so that's probably the best thing I've learned over time. And I learned that the hard way, actually. When I left banking, you know, I was a senior vice president in banking.
Right.
And I was a commercial lender and one of the female lenders in our field for most banks. And I thought I was pretty hot stuff. I drove nice cars. My phone was ringing off the hook all the time. People wanted to talk to me because I was pretty darn important. I was kind of a legend in my own mind.
Oh.
You know, that kind of person. So What happened was when I decided to leave banking and pursue a business of my own, I found out that I wasn't so important anymore. You know, I went into a direct sales business with Mary Kay Cosmetics.
Right.
And I built a great business with Mary Kay, but initially when I first started, I looked at all those people who were on my list from banking and just felt like, wow, you know, what a great list I have. Those people are going to come in droves. I'm going to be a rich woman because they're all going to want Mary Kay Cosmetics from me.
I guess you found that that was a problem when you left banking, that you had to kind of change the way people perceived you.
I did. What I had to do actually was I became a little despondent about the whole thing. You know, when people weren't calling me back, who I had, who I felt were, you know, some of my best clients that I'd worked with over time, I thought, well, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I don't need to be in this business. Maybe I need to think about going back to work, maybe in the banking industry or something. And so I think I mentioned to you, I kind of had a real serious talk with myself. And decided, no, I'm not a quitter. I'm not that kind of a person. And so I decided that what I was going to do was the same thing I did in banking, and that was to rebuild my network. But I was going to build it a different way.
Well, let's go to the video and see how you started out that presentation, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about it.
Okay.
In 1998, I started with Mary Kay, still working my full-time job as a branch manager for a local bank. And it was the last branch that I was going to be opening. I knew that. And so I earned my first car with Mary Kay while I was still doing that. And then in 2000, I finally left and was ready to open my doors with Mary Kay and with full inventory and just to really make a great career out of it. So I felt like I had a real loyal following of people, right? So I left with that great book of business. I left banking and started my Mary Kay business. Well, I started calling up that book of business, and I just knew that they wanted to try this awesome product that I had, and that they would, get in front of me just because I was who I was. Well, I can just tell you this, that I made phone calls that never got returned, ever. And that went on for about 6 months. So I kind of had a come to Jesus talk with myself and realized that the reason that this was happening was because I branded myself, first point, I branded myself as a banker. That's what I thought of myself. My identity was in banking. I was the bank. I was the person who was important because of that. What I had to do over time was figure out who I was, what my brand was. And what I find all the time is that I find people who are very attached, especially in corporate America, very attached to their product or very attached to their employer. And they forget about branding who they are. Because in a sea of competition, why are people wanting to do business with you? See, it's not about who you work for. I mean, it might be a great company, but it's all about identifying who you are out in that sea so that they know that you're the person to go to for that particular product or service. So once I learned that, and I learned the principle of really building a book of business all over again, the right way, I decided that I would do 2 approaches a day with my clients and start building my book of business. And I did that with Mary Kay, 2 approaches a day. But it was a different kind of thing. It went from product to an experience. It went from, I love making these women feel good about themselves. I really love it when I deliver this huge basket of wonderful things to this company and they can give it to somebody else. It was a feel-good thing. It became something that was really a wonderful thing. And all of that came back to me in a very loyal network, a network of people who actually liked calling me back. You know, it was a wonderful thing.
And we're back. That was fantastic. A start to a really good story, and we're going to have more in just a few minutes. You mentioned that you went from selling products to really enjoying making other people feel good, and that your business really exploded when you did that. Can you talk a little bit about that and the effect that that had on your success?
Well, I think it goes back to the serving people first. You know, it's if you really are outward focused and you really want to do the right thing for the right reasons for that person, then I really think that that just comes right back to you. You know, the universe in my mind is just open to helping you develop your business just simply because you've done the right things. You've served another human being. That's what I did with my Mary Kay business. Really, it was a fun situation for both of us. You know, I would go there excited about helping them feel good and get whatever they wanted. I'm a real easy salesperson. You know, I just help them get really what they want.
Well, of course, you arrived in a pink Cadillac,
I
right?
sure did.
So that doesn't hurt at all either. Well, have you seen a similar effect in other members of eNetwork, how you've helped them to transform, and can you give us an example of that?
I have seen over the past year members of eWomen Network. We all attend. It's not that we don't think that it's we have to be so exclusive that we can't reach out to other organizations that are in town. We certainly do go to other networking events, chamber networking events, you know, other women's networking events. But what I've noticed is that the luncheons that used to be the kind of lunches I hated, where you just would go in and sit down, plop yourself down, and there would be the same group of people who knew one another, talking to one another. What I've noticed is that when you see eWomen walk into the room, they go to a table to sit with someone they don't know, and they also start incorporating the philosophy of asking them, you know, questions to get to know them. One question would be, tell me what the profile of a good client is for you.
Yes, I love that.
You know, they ask questions, so the dynamics of those groups are changing, and they're really exciting. So I can see the impact.
There's two questions that I try to teach my group. One is to give first, how can I help you move your business forward? And then when they say, how can, because it's natural to reciprocate, when they say, well, how can I help you? You have to understand who your client profile is and be able to communicate that so that you can then, they can turn into your virtual sales force for you, or your prospecting force anyway.
That's true.
You mentioned in your presentation there's a difference between social networking and business networking. Explain what you mean by that.
Okay, thank you for asking that. That's one of my pet peeves. Is I belong to, like probably you do, a lot of organizations over the past 30 years, 40 years. And you know, they're delightful to go to. You go to lunch and you shake hands with people and you ask how they're doing, and you sit down and you listen to a speaker, and you get up and you leave, and you wonder what on a business level you accomplished. And so, you know, after doing that for a number of years, I started searching for organizations really that, particularly for women, that were more business focused, and found one through eWomen Network that allowed me to really focus on not only the developing good relationships with people, solid relationships that are fun, but that turn into transactions at some point in time.
Well, that's a problem that we face in our particular networking group that I run as well, because though we are there and we have a lot of fun, there's great food, great view, great people, it's a challenge to turn that, though we all know we're there to be a business networking group, it turns into very social. And it's a challenge that I've tried to meet, because over the last few years I've had over 700 people come through there. And yet, each week we only have maybe 50. So where did the other 650 go? My only conclusion is that if they're not getting enough business, they have to find another way to use their time. So it's important to distinguish why you're there, and that this isn't social. So I'm constantly trying to come up with some ideas. How do you do that at eWomen Network to make it more business instead of social?
You know, it has to be a really conscious effort. Every person there has to know why they're there. They have to know that they are there to develop relationships and to ask the right questions of people so that they get the answers that they need to know how to help support them. That's a key, because when you actually reach out to someone and with a real desire to want to help them, you have already started connecting with them. Most people want something initially. They're in for the kill. You know,
Right.
you go to something and someone's trying to sell you something on the
Yes.
spot, or you know, we try to teach women to be really conscious about being intentional when they're networking, and that is see what you can do for that person before you ever think about what they can do for you.
I try to teach that same thing, and it's hard. People don't get it all the time, but you know, we just work and try to make that happen so that people do get business and just instead of just social experiences. Well, let's go to the clip and we'll see a little bit more of your presentation.
I work with Fresno State University on the research project, and we finished the project in 18 months, and it was called the Methamphetamine Recovery Project, which can be located online. I connected with people in a very special way throughout that experience. I spoke to magazines, I spoke to television channels, I spoke to newspapers, I spoke to everybody I could about methamphetamine because I wanted them to be aware of what the issue was. And what happened was I was flooded with telephone calls from people in my community, my friends, people who had been silent, who told me, you know what, I have the same issue with my daughter, where can I go for help? So the reaching out part, for me, it just made such sense to me to incorporate that as a lifelong labor of love in what I do. So as a business connector, really what I do is I learn about people, and I learn what they do, and I listen to what they do, and I start developing a relationship with them. What is hard to see and I really like working with women, mainly just because I think that they have some insecurities about going through the networking process. Most people network by coming to an event like this, passing out cards or brochures, having a great lunch, and then heading home. And then you see one another again the next time you meet. And that, to me, is a social networking event. But what I thought as I looked at women, especially women who were struggling so much financially, I thought, you know what? It needs to be a business opportunity for people to engage. And did you know it takes almost 10 times for you to meet one another, talk to one another, engage with one another, even if it's social media, before you really feel comfortable doing business with one another? And most people don't have the patience to do that. They're in for the sale and they're out. And you know, in the 21st century, that model is dead. That is a gone model. And if you want to build a book of business that is loyal to you and that you feel that you can count on as a community, a like-minded community, because when you reach out, when you shake somebody's hand, don't you want them to shake yours? Reaching out is just that same thing. You reach out to someone, and you hope that they reach back, and you hope that they're like-minded, because you're out there really, you're out there, your community is not going to be everybody. Your community are the folks that are like-minded, who really want to be in your space. And so as you start reaching out, you're going to reach out to a lot of folks that, you know, they're nice acquaintances, but they're not going to become part of your tribe. They're just not. And that's okay. The more you reach out and the more that people reach back, the numbers will start to build. And as those numbers build, I want you to think about this. As your community builds, and with social media and technology the way it is today, and with the number of people each person knows, your book of business could explode exponentially. And that's the power, really, of being a business connector. Every one of you in this room could be a business connector, but in order to do that, you have to really want to know about the other person first. You have to want to serve the other person first. And again, a lot of people don't have a lot of patience for that. And, there are just some people who are warm, fuzzy people when you meet them, and, they have good energy, and you just want to be around them. And then there's the rest of us that, it just takes a while. It just takes a while. We're fun, exciting, good people, but it just takes a while. And so you have to have the patience to to do that. You have to have the patience in integrity and in honesty and with compassion and with a real true desire to help promote or help that other person in business.
That was another good clip. We've got one more to go to in just a few minutes. But I remember you saying something about needing to see at least 2 people each day. And that was how you built your business. Why is that important?
I still do that. That is, when you open the doors to your business, I think you get so excited about wanting to build it fast and reach out to people that you exhaust yourself. And in exhausting yourself, you are less likely then to do the thing that you need to do every day to make it happen. As a banker, you can appreciate the rule of 72. And I read a book by Jeff Olson, and it's The Slight Edge, and the concept in The Slight Edge is really the rule of 72. And it is you build a firm foundation person by person by person by person. And if you are consistent, and if you are sincere, and if you do that with integrity, over time, that number multiplies more than you can imagine.
Well, as a financial advisor, I've used the rule of 72 to show people how their investment will compound over time. And so I guess it sort of does relate
Same
because
thing.
you're compounding your business networker,
Same thing.
your tribe. But I remember you saying that not everybody should be in your networking group. I mean, your tribe, they're not all your people.
Right.
Talk to us about how you decide who should be in your group of network. And I don't mean just in the networking group. I mean in your, like you called it, the tribe, I think.
Well, every organization is filled with like-minded people. And so, when you set standards, you say, here are the standards, here are the things that we're looking for. And people start coming in and taking a look at our organization and seeing how we function. We're really saying to them, are we a fit for you, and are you a fit for us? Here are the standards we believe in. Here's what we want to have happen for you and for us, so it's a win-win situation. But we allow them 2 opportunities to really come and to focus on what we do and how we do it, and see if it will become a fit for them, if they can fit into that. And sometimes I really think whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you can fit. It's a matter of desire. It's a matter of, am I at a point in my business today that I want to change where I'm at and move a different direction? Some people, change is not a thing anybody wants to do, and most people are very uncomfortable with it.
Well, let's go back to the clip,
Okay.
and we'll see the very end of your presentation, and then we'll come here and wrap it up.
Okay.
I'm just going to leave this tip with you. When you pass out a business card, the best value to you is to provide something of value to the other person. So, when you walk into a room and you're talking to someone, and you're asking them about their business and what they do, and getting to know a little bit more about them, what the profile of a client is for them, and that kind of thing, and then just simply, how can I support you? What kind of help do you need? Then they become interested in you because you made a connection with them. The other thing is they're probably going to tell you what kind of help they need, because that's kind of cool, isn't it? And if you're honest about what you need, and this is where women fall short, speak it, say it. What is it that you need? And be specific. And then when that person says that to you, you as a business connector can write down a resource, a person, a number. And if you don't have that number with you, just say, please connect with me. Here's my card. I want you to connect with me. I have a resource for you that I want to give to you. And what does that card become? The most important card in the deck that they have. Because if you're just stacking cards, It's meaningless. So again, remember to brand yourself. Remember to take time to build your network and reach out with intention and integrity to serve. And if you do that, I promise you, your business will soar.
Well, that was a great presentation. I know that the viewers enjoyed the whole thing. And I have just a few other questions to ask you. And I always end the show this way because, you know, you have had a great career in several different areas. And we'd like to know who has had the biggest influence on you and your career success.
I'm going to name 3 women that I have had a big effect. And one would be my mother. I'm going to say that because, you know, she just, there's a lot of influence in my life as a result of her and her work ethic. And, you know, that's one thing. I can always say that I might not be as smart as you, but I can outwork you any day. The other person is an aunt of mine who started banking in the Central Valley and truly was a pioneer in her field. And she was a professional and just a mentor, and I really looked up to her as I was a young woman growing up. And I would say that the third person now at this season in my life is Sandra Yancey. And Sandra Yancey is a mentor of mine. She's the founder of eWomen Network, a true entrepreneur out of Dallas, Texas. And she continues to guide me and to help me grow my business and to leverage my business.
Well, that's fantastic. Thanks for being on the show with us today, Sherill.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
You are a true model of success. But before I have to go, I'd like to ask you one last question as I ask every guest at the end of the show. What is one of the most important pieces of advice that a mentor like Ms. Clancy has shared with you that you'd like to pass on to other entrepreneurs to help them be more successful?
You know, I think the best piece of advice I can give them is if they have a passion and they have a dream, and I know this sounds cliche, but don't let anyone tell you you can't do something that you aspire to do.
I agree with that. That's fantastic advice. Well, thanks again for being on the show with us today, Sherill. And all of you watching out there, be sure to visit www.envisiontv.com to see more about Sherill Calhoun. That's the letter N, visiontv.com, and you'll find more ways to make your business work as hard for you as you do for it. And remember, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, you just have to make it your own, and we'll see you next time on Spotlight on Excellence.